Okay, so today we are going to be going over my favorite personal COD campaigns. This is not going to include the Warzone storyline, the COD Mobile, or any of that such stuff. And this will also not include Black Ops 4 Specialist HQ mode, which was very similar to a campaign mode. There'll be no zombies, survival, or even exo zombies story in this video. But we will be taking a look at each individual campaign. You know, we're gonna pull up like a little synopsis for each personal campaign. Of course, all of the Okay, so Black Ops 3. Takes place in 2065, 40 years after Black Ops 2. In a world with all new technology, story follows Black Ops soldiers. The game's campaign does support co-op, which is a definite improvement. You also unlock different weapons as you get through the game. But in this game, you actually put under the command of Kane, who is basically your general that you're working for.
Battery reporting for duty.
And you're working with Hendrix together to try to rescue hostages and prevent crisis. And in this case, in Black Ops 3, I ranked it here because there just wasn't much for it. I mean, as a game, as a whole, Black Ops 3 didn't feel like it was a big campaign. I mean, I was ranking campaigns.
MCL initiated. Fight and win.
And I was going through, and the next one on my list is actually the OG Call of Duty campaign.
Infantry neutralized.
I personally didn't like this one. I thought it was way too, you know, brashed out.
Clean kill. Shut out.
And I just didn't like this campaign. You can make the argument that this was just a terrible, absolutely awful campaign. if you have played it, and it's just not a campaign that's my personal favorite. Right next to that one is the Call of Duty 3 campaign. Now, I like the Call of Duty 2 campaign
Neutralized.
a lot. I did not like Call of Duty 3's
Nomad
campaign.
KIA. Enemy down.
I thought that campaign was very lacking, and it just didn't include enough stuff, and
They're gone.
that just wasn't enough for me. I didn't like that
Requesting UAV
campaign.
support.
So
Spectre
that
down.
is why you notice that I just didn't like that game. COD 3 felt way too reminiscent of Call of Duty, as the first game was literally pretty much the same thing as this one. But then next on my ranking tier list is Call of Duty 2, which is a personal favorite of mine when it comes to OG campaigns. This campaign was really fun. This campaign had one mission in particular that was insanely fun. It was known as the Winter War mission. There was another one which was the D-Day mission, and both of them were probably the best missions in the entire campaign that were featured.
Enemy FO down.
And honestly, I really enjoyed the campaigns as far as they went. I mean, so moving on to next, we're moving into the next section of my tier list, which is the average campaigns. First on here is the Call of Duty Vanguard campaign, which I switched around with Cold War because personally I made two changes here. The first of which was
Spectre down.
Call of Duty World War II being really high on this list.
Outrider KIA.
But then the second of which was switching Call of Duty Cold War and actually putting it ahead of World War II and Vanguard. So Vanguard's gonna be the next game on my list here. I didn't like Vanguard. I thought the story was very simple, and although you could play as multiple characters and there was a lot more, you know, of a creation suite to Vanguard, as it felt like you were just playing as characters that had different abilities and were like based on different types of soldiers. It wasn't that interesting to me. It seemed like every basic World War II, you know, style campaign that we have in Call of Duty, which I'm gonna reference that multiple times. Multiple Call of Duty games have had this same campaign theme, and I just don't like it. And that was my reason for not liking this game that much. I mean, the multiplayer was insanely fun. Also very easy multiplayer because skill balanced matchmaking was in the game, but we're not ranking multiplayer, we're ranking story, and as far as campaign goes, I did not enjoy it for Vanguard. Moving on to the next one, we have World War II. This is a very interesting entry right here because a lot of people would put this way higher. Me personally, like I said, not a big fan of these World War II style Call of Duty themed games. I think they're very limited in what they can do, and I think that's what makes them boring. Now, that's not to say that you can't like this type of Call of Duty. I think that these Call of Duties were very enjoyable and that they were very fun. I'm not saying that they were, like, ultimately terrible. because there is one near the top of the list that is a World War themed type of game, and you will see that later on in my list. I know many of you are going to be excited to see which game that is, and you can probably already guess, given as I've eliminated the rest of them. The next game is Infinite Warfare. I didn't like Infinite Warfare. I felt like the combat was a little bit too fast-paced, and it didn't feel like Black Ops 3 where it was, ridiculous paced, but I still felt like Infinite Warfare was just really a more advanced one-off of Advanced Warfare, which was a really good game, but for me, I don't know what it is. I think they could have done a better job with this game.
Ruined.
Personally, but moving on past that, that's going to move us past the average section into the excellent section. The first game in this section is Call of Duty World at War. The OG Call of Duty World at War. Also the first game to introduce Nazi zombies, but we're not comparing zombie experiences in today's video, so that will be for a different video. You know, that will probably be coming out this week, so stay tuned for that, everybody, but yeah. Just moving on into this one. The game they have ranked here is World at War, perhaps one of the best endings to any Call of Duty game ever made, and just an incredible story, some incredible features like how realistic it was in World War I, that these things were actually happening and that these countries were actually at war. I really liked how this was such a realistic game for the time period, and it was just such a time period piece and an excellent game based on World War I and II. So it was a really good game, honestly, and I'm glad they decided to make this definitely one of my favorite Call of Duty titles. The next one's gonna have a lot of people reeling because they wouldn't expect me to put it this low, but it's Black Ops 2. Now, hear me out on this one because I know a lot of you are gonna be saying, what? Black Ops 2? That game was so good. What do you
Threat
mean?
neutralized.
Okay, so personally, I'm an OG fan of the OG Black Ops. I did not like Black Ops 2 as much. Now, seeing that, you are still gonna notice Black Ops is still not at the top of my list. It's still quite a few games down, and so you can see I'm not the biggest Black Ops fan, like, and that's just because I think that MW did the story better. And I just think that their games are a little bit better when it comes to campaigns. I mean, I think that Infinite and Advanced were not the greatest campaigns, but, you know, I've played them and they were pretty enjoyable. Whenever I can roll through a game on Veteran and have some fun on the way, then I think the game is arguably very good. I mean, I don't think it would be very good if I can go through it and it would just be garbage and not enjoyable. And that is not the case with this game. Black Ops 2 was very much reasonably one of the best games for the time period, and it was amazing.
Ambush hunter down.
As you guys didn't realize, this game was absolutely awesome for the time period. Black Ops 2 was amazing. One of the best multiplayers, one of the best zombies by far. But this game's campaign, I found it a little bit lacky. The main villain of this campaign was Raul Menendez, and he was a great villain, one of the best villains in Call of Duty history. But that does not mean that this game is the top game for me, and you know, that's a sad thing, because this game could
Vector
be.
smoked.
And it was very close. I mean, I definitely took shower
Ready to
time to
assault.
think about these games and think which one really takes the cake for me. And
Threat
sadly,
neutralized.
it was not this one. I mean, Black Ops 2 just isn't the one for me. Moving up next, Call of Duty Ghost. This game was
Authorizing
insanely
UAV
fun.
release.
If you didn't like this game, I would think that you are smoking a bowl of crap, because
Nomad kill.
this game was really fun. Now, I know there was a lot of haters who didn't like the multiplayer aspect of this game, which is a very weird concept to me, because I absolutely love the multiplayer, but I know some people didn't like it. Some people thought that it was a goofy multiplayer, and you know, you can argue all you want that it had a bad multiplayer. I perfectly understand that, but the campaign was really good. And those people who hate it because of campaign need to get a fucking brain, because you cannot hate that game because of the campaign.
Ambulance hunter down.
It's just, it's not possible.
Smoke check.
The campaign is just so good, and I think people need to understand that it needs to be given a chance. So you need to give it a chance there, and Call of Duty Ghost is really good. It had the villain of Rourke, who is known as one of the all-time greatest Call of Duty villains to ever exist. Now we have Call of Duty Black Ops, also known as The Numbers, if you can even remember that. This game was infamous for the numbers. The numbers, Mason, the numbers. What do you remember about the numbers? This game's also infamous for Viktor Reznov, one of the most interesting characters in the Call of Duty franchise, as he died back at Vorkuta. And Mason is having his head screwed with. This game is quite literally a spin on what happened in COD Ghosts, but a more interesting version of it, and I like it for that. I think that's awesome. Moving on, next we have the best of the best tier, and the one that is, of course, in the back of that is the MW 2019. Now, I know I'm probably going to get insane hate for that, because MW 2019 people are going to say, oh, what are you talking about? That game was awesome. Yeah, it was really awesome, but I have some OG games that I personally liked ahead of that when it comes to Call of Duty.
Ruin KIA.
And MW 2019 was really good, you know, with Task Force 141 getting ready to be set up again, and Farah joining the team, and Kareem, and Kahid al-Assad, and just all of the story. It was amazing. The game was awesome, and even the fact that they came out with Warzone later, that was amazing. Next up, I have Advanced Warfare. If you've been keeping track, this is a game that I didn't let slip earlier, because personally I like Advanced Warfare. I'm a little bit of an Advanced Warfare campaign lover, and you know, why not? The campaign had some of the best weapons, same with the multiplayer. The BAL-27, the ASMR-1, just to mention a couple, the Stinger, the TAC-19, the Atlas-45, multiple weapons that were just so good. The HSMC, just So many different weapons. And just such a good story with M1 irons. And the ending of that game was just phenomenal. Next up is Call of Duty 4. Taking number 4. How iconic is that on my list? Taking number 4 for the best Call of Duty campaign of all time. It's up there. Now, the reason this one wasn't the top one was because, yes, I was holding back for some of my faves. Once again, but also because I was holding back for some of the most iconic Call of Duties. And I think COD 4 is definitely up there, but it's in my top 4. I would not consider it number 1. COD 4 introduced Imran Zakhaev, the man we did not know who was the villain at the time, Vladimir Makarov, and also Al-Assad, 3 of the biggest villains, as well as Viktor Zakhaev, Zakhaev's son.
Crushed it.
Next up on my personal favorites is number 3. Modern Warfare 3.
Mess with the best. Die like the rest.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is potentially one of the best Call of Duties of all time. It had one of the greatest storylines, some of the craziest character deaths. Rest in peace, Sandman, Soap, and more. Rest in peace, Kamarov as well. All those characters were insanely cool, and they will be missed. Also, some of the craziest multiplayer maps and stuff, but we'll talk about the multiplayers in another day, personally, which one's my favorite. That is a much more difficult tier list, because I have totally different rankings for that. Next up on the campaign tier list, taking number 2. Modern Warfare 2. This is an iconic game. Our first introduction to the ACR 6.8. One of the greatest assault rifles of all time. Also an introduction to multiple weapons that we would come to know and use in many different Call of Duties. Also, perhaps the most beloved Modern Warfare game of all time until as of recent. This game also received a next-gen remaster. This game was just lovely. Some of the best locations, the Zakhaev International Airport, the Favela Village, Rust multiplayer map, the different villages, and abandoned buildings, wide open battlefields, some of the greatest breaching scenes in MW history are from this game, and some of the most iconic moments in Call of Duty are from this game. Probably the most iconic moments. At least for this game. And there was many iconic moments. along with the biggest betrayal and turn of events that has ever been in Call of Duty. The OGMW2 will always live in our hearts. The multiplayer was even better, but we'll go over that on a completely different day. For now, I've decided, hey, why not review the campaigns? This campaign had twists and turns around every corner, was maybe the best COD campaign ever. But there's one in my opinion, and one in possibly everyone's opinion, that takes the cake over this one. And this is Modern Warfare 2 2022. Potentially the best campaign of any Call of Duty game. This campaign was fully branched out. You would play as the entire Task Force 141. Besides, of course, Gaz, who probably needs some more missions because you never play as him. You would play one mission as Ghost, multiple missions as Soap, and of course in the previous MW you would actually play as Captain Price for the whole game. This game had two of the biggest villains, which, if you want to avoid spoilers, I decide that you should probably come back want to beat the campaign, but two of the biggest betrayals ever and two of the biggest villains ever are in this game. General Shepard and Graves. And then there's also two other villains that aren't even shown in this game, but keep on appearing in game files as if they're going to show up at some point. Makarov and Rourke, who we know from the previous MW games and Call of Duty Ghosts. Which leads us to, will there be some DLCs for the campaign that tell us how this ends? Possibly. This is clearly the top Call of Duty campaign. Some of the most difficult missions on veteran or hardened that anyone has ever played. Beating realism on this game is a true challenge, and only the pros can do that. This campaign was a true great campaign. If you haven't already played this campaign, you might want to pre-order or to purchase the game just for this campaign, but also for the multiplayer. And I mean, the Spec Ops is completely optional. But the campaign is a must play. It is a tragic, fulfilling end game for a campaign. And we've never seen anything like it. With missions based in the middle of the desert, inside of buildings, and even a all gillied up remaster mission. So what was your opinion? What was the top Call of Duty campaign? Was I just wrong, and did Black Ops 3 have the best one? Or did you feel like I was right and the Modern Warfare games took the cake? Or maybe I was neither and the Black Ops games took the cake. Or maybe your favorite one's Call of Duty Ghost campaign. Maybe it's World War II or Vanguard. Make sure to drop a comment below noting what your favorite campaigns were. Maybe even your top 3, if you can. Mine personally were MW2 2022, the reboot, MW2, OG, and MW3. But let me know what your most favorite campaigns that you have ever played were.